All right, I'd like to open up the Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, January 8th, 2019. I can't believe every time I say the word 2019. Before we get meeting, please join me in rising and saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first order of business schedule item is the Skybox license transfer. This is a public hearing, so we're going to have a motion to waive the public reading. Have a motion in a second. All those in favor? And just a little bit of housekeeping. Mr. Brian Dick, the selectman, he had a commitment, so he's unable to make it. And recording secretary Melissa, she has a very nasty cold, so what we're going to do is tape, and then she'll extract the notes from that. That's just for housekeeping. So, let's jump right in. Maybe who wants to start off with what new business we're looking to do?
Good evening. My name is John P. Connell. I'm the attorney for the applicant. To my immediate right is Tammy Mincello, the proposed manager of record. To her right is Ken Cotillo, one of the proposed owners of the restaurant. And to his right is his son, the other proposed owner, Chris Cotillo. We're here tonight for an application to transfer the all-alcoholic beverage license to the applicant, and various food and entertainment licenses to go along with that. And basically, the owners want to operate this restaurant in the extreme near term, almost exactly like it is being operated now, where they learn the business, and down the road they may have some improvements or renovations they want to do, but for the immediate future they're going to operate it with the same hours, bands Friday and Saturday night. The proposed manager of record has worked there several years. How many years?
8.
8 years. She's been the head bartender. She knows the business very well. She knows the employees very well. We're going to keep all of the same employees, those who want to stay. And that's the basic transaction before you.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so we had, on a number of fronts, a liquor license, but essentially we're changing ownership as well as management in a nutshell, correct?
Yes.
And all the entities that go along with that for all the licenses.
Yes, it's a new entity that will hold the license, and new owners, which are the managers, and then the manager of record is new as well.
Okay, very good. At this time, I'm going to open up the board for questions. Mr. Crowder.
Have you owned a type of business like this in the past, any kind of restaurant, bar, type of thing?
No, I worked in restaurants as a young man, but for the past 9 years I was the chief executive officer of a large company down in Boston in the real estate. I retired from that job to pursue this because Chris and I want to work together.
I know Ms. Mincello from the establishment, so I know she's got a good reputation of being down there. But when it comes down to it, you're going to be the one responsible for what's going on there and what's happening. We've had some instances in town where we've had a lot of minors being served, other things that have happened, and we're really cracking down on it. So I know the way it's run now, I don't think we've had many problems down there. We want to continue it to be the same way. But, just getting to know the business, learn the business, being part of it, being the owners, that's the key.
Yeah, we're going to be on site a lot, and the responsibility that goes with owning an establishment that serves the public is front and center for us.
Okay.
So.
What about the food portion of it? I mean, I know, is the menu going to be the same? It's going to be...
Yeah, the current owner was in the process of changing the menu, so he's got a new one printed up, and we want to look at it. We haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but the menu's probably something that will be changing over time. We think it's really too big for the type of place that it is, but in terms of sort of the theme of the establishment, we want it to be the same. Sports, good food, music on the weekends.
As long as everybody's safe, certified, and we're carding everybody and doing the right things, I think it'll work well. It's a nice establishment. It's in a good location. There's a lot of traffic that goes by there. So hopefully to continue and be prosperous. So I wish you luck, and
Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Stronach?
Thank you very much. First of all, very comprehensive package, and I want to thank the chairman for having our attorneys look at it so that, and the town manager, so that I could make sure that it was all in order, because as I was reading through this, I was like, okay, what does this mean? So it's pretty comprehensive. And I do want the public to know that our attorneys has looked at this as well, and made recommendations to us. But my questions are among the similar line as Mr. Crapman. So typically, when change of manager comes in front of us, we also have their tip certification, and I noticed that we didn't have that for you. But I also noticed that you...
For me?
Yes.
I have it.
Okay.
I have the card. Oh, okay.
I'm just assuming that you do have it.
Okay, yeah, I have it on me
I
too.
noticed that you worked at the Skybox, but you had worked at Mavericks before and has been a bartender for quite some time.
And at Bocce's, my aunt actually took ownership of that, so, yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would also just like to note, in the same vein as Selectman Crapman, one of the things that we get from the ABC is we get a last call report, and unfortunately, your establishment was in there within the last 6 months, so I would like you to pay attention to that.
Okay.
It's very, very important to us that we look at those last call reports, and I just want to bring that to your attention.
If I may, I'm not sure, what is the last call report?
I don't.
The last call report is if people get pulled over and you were the last establishment.
Oh, the 24J notice? Yep, okay, I understand.
So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that as the new owners, and if you would pay attention to that, because that's important to me. And
We will. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I heard that you take this very seriously, so I appreciate that. And those are my only questions.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, thank you. I'll try to compete with Mr. Crabman for the raspiest voice tonight. So we'll see who lasts the longest. I just have one question, because my colleagues have covered the areas of concern that were on my mind. But in general, can one of you just detail how many employees do you have there? I assume many are part-time, but...
There's 9 bartending staff. Tammy's one of them. There's 3 gentlemen who work in the kitchen. And there's 2 part-time employees, sound and the door guy for the weekends.
Great.
They're just on for the weekends.
Great, super. So, in many respects, that's a decent-sized employer, and there's obviously a lot of responsibilities that go with that, but I certainly welcome you to the community, and we look forward to hopefully working with you.
We have felt very welcome.
Great.
Thank you.
Excellent.
All right, very good. Yeah, Mr. Johnson just hit on the number of employees. Now, did you say if they choose to stay, they can stay, as far as...
Yeah, we're going to make an offer of employment to every current employee. At the moment, I think the current owner is which swapping out or thinking about adding an employee in the kitchen. We have to kind of see how that shakes out. We're not really in control of that, but we anticipate making an offer of employment to every employee in the establishment on the day that we take over.
Okay, very good, excellent. And to Ms. Stronach's point, the food permit, the entertainment license, the automated amusement devices, all the paperwork checked out through the town, as well as our senior town council also checked out the liquor license, and that's all that's all the paperwork that we received. So everything checked out. So do you have any other further? Actually, I'm going to close at this point. Can we close the public hearing?
Make a motion and close the public hearing.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
You do.
All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Formalities, we have to take care of that. So I just want to wish you well. Welcome to the community. I want to wish you well and good luck and good luck for the community. That's all. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to take a motion to approve the request?
That would help.
I'll be happy to offer a motion, and I will include in that motion, so I don't miss anything, all of the licenses applied for, which to my knowledge include common victualler, food permit, entertainment license, automatic amusement device license, and of course the liquor license.
You got. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Senator Feingold, it's perfect timing. It's 7:10. It's perfect timing. Come on down. Actually, if you want to just take a... All I did is I print out the list of questions that, through the board.
Sure.
Just to have one, that's all.
There you go. Well, it's great to be here, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the board. And I want to, through you, thank the people of the town for giving me the opportunity to serve again. I have a special relationship with this community, and this community has always treated me incredibly well, and I intend to be a relentless advocate, as I've been in the past, and make sure that we are helpful in any way we can. As I tell people, we're open for business. We got sworn in last Wednesday. We'll be having office hours. Tom Mahoney, Tom, raise your hand. Besides getting in touch with me, you can always get in touch with Tom, or many of you know Mary Rose. We also have a good team with the delegation, Representative Wynn and Representative Robertson. So I think we're going to have a great team. Just as you know, two of them are very new, so please cut them some slack, and I'm sure they'll get up to speed. But the biggest I just want to emphasize is that there is no issue too small. And please, if you hear something from someone, don't be afraid to pass it along. I like to kind of break it down to kind of what's happening globally, and then kind of bring it back down to some issues we're going to work on in the state. And I know there's some specific issues we want to talk about. So some of the things that I'm personally working on is the gas explosion issue, and how it relates to the town is that what people went through in Andover, North Andover, and Andover should never have happened, and I want to make sure that it doesn't happen to this community and other communities as well. It was one of the most horrific, frightening experiences that anybody could ever go through, but the problem is I still think there's a lot of things that are unchecked. We still have a lot of gas leaks in our community, and I'm still concerned about response time. So we're going to be filing a comprehensive bill that deals with that. The other thing that we're going to be laser focused on is economic development. We're very blessed in this state that we have 3.5% unemployment rate, but I think the biggest mistake that we can make is to take that for granted. I think we need to make sure that we continue to train people, give people opportunity, and make sure that we have a strong business climate, not only for the larger corporations, but for the small businesses. Especially in this community, small businesses are the heart. I think what makes this community great, makes this whole Commonwealth great, and we just got to make sure we don't forget those who are, when I think about small business, 2 people, 5 people, 10 people. Not every entity is a 1,000-person corporation, so that's something I'm also going to really focus on. How it relates kind of back to the town is this last month, and I was talking to the manager today about this, is that we're off by about $500 million in our benchmark for our December revenues. Now, we're hopeful that is due to the change in the tax law, that there isn't as the benefit of paying your state taxes in advance. So we are hoping that is a reason why that they are off dramatically. Hopefully, January bounces back. February bounces back, and March it bounces back, because one of the questions that you all have is getting the local aid number as quickly as possible, and for the most part I think the House and Senate has done that. But if we're in a situation where we can't gauge where our revenues are going, the last thing we want to do is give you a local aid number and then have those dreaded 9C cuts come in halfway through the year like they might come now. So I just think that as much as we do want to get that number, which we will absolutely do, we also want to make sure that, we understand where the revenues are going, because the hard part, unlike the local communities is, for the most part, yours is based on property taxes. As many of you know, the state is based on income tax, sales tax, and capital gains tax. As soon as you have rising unemployment, stock market's not gaining much, all three of those are being affected, and that could drop our revenues dramatically. So that's why we just have to be on our toes and make sure that, we see where the funding mechanisms are going. Talking about bringing it locally, obviously, you're concerned about Route 38 as mine as well. As I joke around with people, and obviously I'm dating myself, but when I was a small boy growing up here, when I was a good kid, either I could get a car at Stewart's or my mom would drive me down to Capitol and Lowell, and that might take 5 minutes. But now that could take 35 minutes because of all the traffic. So I fully understand the desire to, make Route 38, and whether it's traffic signalization or with lanes, turnoffs. We're going to do that. So I'm working with, Selectman Kratman. I've been been told where things are at, and I'll make sure that I'll do everything I can to make sure we get as much funding as we can. If we can bring it as far down as the Wind School, we'll do that. But as I said, when it comes to Chapter 90 money, I will be a relentless advocate. I will fight for every single dollar I can for the community and make sure that we do everything we can to, improve the traffic conditions along Route 38. Talking about dollars, Chapter 70 money, I think we're all looking at the foundation review budget. I want to bring as much money as I can. Something I've always been focused on is circuit breaker dollars for special education. I'd love to get that up higher than 75%. That's something I think could help out the town dramatically. But as you know, anytime you want to change the education formulas, there are winners and losers, but in the State House, there never can be a loser. So what will happen is that there'll be some communities that will not see as much of an increase as other communities. So we will not, as much as people said they're going to redo the formula, that will not happen. I've been around a long time. They will not redo the formula. It's kind of like software. We'll kind of have another version, and we'll build upon what's been put on before. But my thing is I want to make sure a town like this gets the money they deserve, and I think we have been underfunded for education, and I'll do everything I can to make sure that we get the dollars we should. The other thing is that you mentioned about additional funding for police to combat opioids. I can't what a challenge this is for not only our state, but for our country. The most daunting statistic that I've heard is that if you would equate opioid deaths to airlines, it's basically like a crash a day. So there's about literally a crash a day, call it 200 to 300 people die a day from opioids overdose in our country. So it is something that is still top of mind. Can we get funding for our local police to win the fight? Well, we'll do everything we can. We're going to work with our Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Katusian. We're going to work with our District Attorney, Marion Ryan, and do everything we can to make sure that not only are we fighting this fight, but if there are dollars out there, we'll definitely fight for those as well. Another thing too is I talked to the manager about this too, this is just unexcusable. The fact that I can't believe that DCAM has not transferred the land over yet. I'm almost embarrassed to come back here and to even acknowledge that the situation with the cemetery and Livingston, and I can't believe there's actually problems with the police station. The police station dates me. So that is not a government at its best. It's frankly government at its worst because, I understand that, DCAM wants to be rigorous, and I'm not critical of them being rigorous, but it's not okay to be slow. And I will do everything I can to make sure we expedite things. As far as sewer relief, we'll push as best we can. I applaud this community for stepping up and trying to deal with stuff underground. Part of the problems we've had all these problems with gas explosions is we're not paying enough attention to our stuff that's happening underneath, whether it's pipes, whether it's sewer. So I think it's just something that I think as a state we have to pay more attention to what's going on underneath us. I know a lot of us don't like that stuff because there's no ribbon cuttings. People can't see it, but we are not a young state and not a young town, and that our infrastructure is getting old, and we do need to do the things to improve it. Finally, and I know there's some other questions, so I'll let you, if you want to ask me those, I'm happy to answer those questions as well. But State Hospital, last year we received $90,000. I plan to not only fight for that, but hopefully we can do better. But I just think at some point, we need to have a discussion about the hospital and all the services that are demanded by the town, and have an open and honest conversation with the state and say, is 90,000 enough, and there should be a lot more. And the other thing is that if there's all this excess land there, why shouldn't we in the town have access to that, or at least have access to the buildings? So I think that is a discussion that we need to have, and that's something that I will also work on as well. For a lot of these other topics you have, like, I will always fight as much as I can for as much funding on any issue that you have. I will do everything I can to not have unfunded mandates, and, work as a partnership to make sure that we can squeeze every dollar out of anything that's out there for services or responsiveness or anything like that that will benefit this town.
Excellent, very good. Well, before I do this, I'll read this for the record, so what we're going to do is, those are some of the questions.
Sure.
Senator, that you actually put in, but what I'd like to do,
Yep.
because I know time's of the essence.
Yep.
But I'd like maybe to bounce to each of the selectmen, if there's a particular topic that you want to discuss that Barry had, why don't we hit that quickly, because time is of the
Sure.
essence for Barry. Sure. So, Mr. Johnson.
So no problem. So first of all, welcome again.
Thank you.
It seems like you never left.
I appreciate that.
As you said, we've been talking about a number of these topics for quite some time.
Yeah.
So my tact is, and I appreciate your candid approach to your efforts and your commitment to the community. And I know from past history that you are true to your word, and we will collaborate with you to try to effectuate some good results here on a number of these things. But I think my view here on some of these, specifically things like state sewer relief, library aid, is my ask of you on behalf of the citizens here in Tewksbury is not to look at it necessarily as a Tewksbury issue, but to look at it as a state issue. The concern I have about library aid is that we were forced when the economy went south, and you started your comments tonight with, some warning signs are currently before us that, revenues might not be what were anticipated. So hopefully we're never back to what we had as a great recession a few years ago. But that caused, in my mind, inequities, in the sense that the Board of Library Commissioners, in order for Tewksbury to get back to a non-waiver status, we would have to strip funds from other services, like, for example, public safety, where there's an opioid epidemic. And it's impossible to do. There are limited resources locally. So my view has always been, and we've had this conversation before, is that on a statewide level, there needs to be a revisitation of the structure, the rules of the road, not so much for communities who deliberately or volitionally choose not to fund their public library, but when there's a downturn in the economy of some significance that forces communities like ours to make choices between service areas that could potentially lead to those decisions. And what I would remind you of, for the benefit of hindsight, is that we didn't take an axe or a hatchet to one department. All departments sacrificed. And that's what kind of is unsettling, because it wasn't as though the library was singled out. Every department in town tightened their belts and worked hard to make the budget work under the leadership of people here at this table and others. But what it leads to is that you can never recover. We still haven't recovered with respect to the waiver process, because we have to rebuild the funds that we didn't put back in. And it's still today, in a slightly healthier picture, leaves us as a community at a disadvantage, because we can make good today in the current fiscal year budget and meet the maintenance of effort requirement, but we can never go back and put $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 that we should have had accessible in the eyes of the commissioners into the pot. Because to do that today would require us to not hire teachers or firefighters or police officers still.
The point of information, when you say in front of the commissioners, are they holding money back because of that, or what's your?
It's a waiver status.
Okay.
And it would preclude inter-community borrowing.
Okay.
It affects the status of the public library. So my perspective is that it's a statewide issue. It has to do with when the bottom falls out, and knock on wood, hopefully that never happens again,
Yep.
but there needs to be a different safety valve that respects the fact that there's drastic conditions that have occurred. And
Yep.
that wasn't the case when we had the recession.
Yep.
So Tewksbury has never been able to refill those funds. Now, we are current now on an annualized basis, but not on a retrospective basis.
Yeah.
And that still has implications for Tewksbury. So to me, the formula or the methodology that's followed is flawed. And I'd ask you, again, it's not a Tewksbury-specific issue. There
Sure.
are many other communities impacted by the same description that I'm giving you. I think it's a statewide issue. So it requires someone, not at our level locally, but at a higher level to look at it. So I'd like to ask you to take that away. And,
Sure.
and it's, it's not a burning fire today because our budget, we meet the maintenance of effort requirements, and we've invested back into our library as we've had resources, and our hours have increased and things of that nature. But this is about learning lessons from the past to prevent the same picture from happening again in the future. And, the same applies to state sewer relief, right? We get, it's under $10,000, if I remember
10 to
right,
20.
annually. Well, this community put $100+ million into their sewer infrastructure. And there's a program in the Commonwealth to reimburse communities for investing in their infrastructure, and we get, $8,000 or $10,000 a year. So,
Manager, do you know how that formula is designated? Do you know why
It's
it's
about 20% of your existing debt.
20% of existing debt?
yep.
But-
And we have a little more than,
Yeah, but in the end, they only appropriate statewide about $1.1 million.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, again, there's been creative approaches to how school building is funded. There have
Yeah.
been creative approaches to other, local aid initiatives that perhaps some creative minds, and again, I understand the financial constraints, but, maybe there's a way when a community like Tewksbury says, we're going to put shovels in the ground in the next 2 years and incur $80 million of expense, that there's a greater commitment from the Commonwealth to that community this year.
Yep.
And then down the road, they take more responsibility. But to invest a necessity of $100+ million and to see a, quote, commitment that's made by the Commonwealth to help defer some of those expenses, that's literally pennies on the millions.
Yep. Well,
in
what
my
percentage
mind-
of the town is sewered right now, or is it
Pretty much 100.
100%?
Yeah, just about all of them.
Okay.
And that's a huge issue for us, and it continues to be, because we, the
Yeah.
residents of the town, through the rate on sewer and water, pay for that, and we've also been forced to shift some of the debt to the overall tax burden to the entire community.
Yep.
And that was done out of necessity, and those were very difficult decisions. So I'm not asking that, $75 million be brought back. We're realists
Right.
here. But
Right.
I think there's ways for the Commonwealth at the statewide level to be more creative and thoughtful about how do we assist communities who make that investment. Whereas
Yeah, I
others
think it's an interesting point about how many, I'm just thinking to myself, how many communities that are 100% sewer that weren't, that have made the amount of investment this town has in the last 10 years? I doubt there are that many.
Right. Yep. Some form of an evaluation process, some kind of, there's an add-on benefit if you make that investment at a certain
Yeah.
level. If you sewer a percentage of your community.
Yeah, no, I think that's-
Those are all things that, could screen out or add people in.
Yep.
There needs to be some creative thinking, in my opinion. And I'd ask you to take that back. Again, it's not a short-term solution. It's not something that can be fixed tomorrow, but as you get engaged and, you know, re-engaged in, you know, advocating for us, those are things that I think not only serve Tewksbury and the rest of your district well,
Yeah.
but they represent the Commonwealth well as
Absolutely.
well.
It's an environmental issue, too, so it's a serious
Agreed.
environmental issue.
Agreed.
for the state.
You know? And I won't beat the land transfer issues up, because we've personally been involved a number of times on the State House property with discussions. It just, to the level that you can re-energize that.
That'll be
commitment
re-energized, absolutely.
And help us get this over the finish line. At this point, what's even more discouraging than the time, and your comments are spot on, that it shouldn't take this long.
Yeah.
What's more discouraging is the laundry list of to-dos was given to the community, and the town has delivered on every single one of those at expense to the community. And yet, the other half of that deal hasn't been met. And that's not a good way to do business. It just isn't. So anything you can do to help us with that is...
I have some ideas,
appreciated.
so we'll be at it.
Thank you. So I'll rest with that, because I know my colleagues have other comments.
Very good. Ms. Stronach, just a few minutes. I know the senator's back's against the wall for time.
So first of all, I appreciate Mr. Johnson's comments, and I am going to say to you, in terms of the things that are asked for, they're not just unique to Tewksbury.
Sure.
So in this same vein, one of the things that we're looking for is senior relief, and we have put senior relief programs into our budget and to offset taxes, but the seniors have to basically not have any money to be able to participate in those programs, and that's really not as helpful as it is to the majority of our seniors who are on a fixed income. So again, creative ways to help us solve that, because we don't have the ability to solve that without the state's help, and that truly goes into the local aid comments. But the other thing that I was talking about, and you'll see this when a couple of years ago, you all put together that modernization bill, and first of all, that streamlined a lot of the things that we did. It also gave us the abilities to make incredible efficiencies within our town structure and things like that. And I'm not saying that you should go back to that, but when I'm thinking about creative things that the state can do, I mean, those were things that didn't necessarily cost you money, but had a great financial impact in efficiencies on the town. And I just love those kind of programs that we're looking at ways to fix things. And, you know, I can think of some state programs that we could probably put some money into and looking at ways to redefine them. I think about workman's comp, I think about MCAD, I think about those kind of things that draw on a community that take 3 years to settle out, that if there were a way to streamline some of those, that would bring revenue back to the town, because we wouldn't be spending money on those things in the long term. So if we could think of ways to streamline efficiencies from the state level that would have an impact on what we do at the local levels, that would impact just town department budgets, I think that would be a win-win for everybody. So I think of that municipal modernization as a great example of something like that. That was just a bunch of, I know that took a long time, and I know that there was a lot of thought partners involved in that, but if you guys could think of some other project like that, I think that that would be very helpful to us at a local level. So with that, I'll turn that over.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stronach. Mr. Crowley?
You know what I want to talk to you about. You know, 30 years, you know, we've been dealing with it, and I know I've talked to you a million times about it, and I know you. The one thing I love is I give you a call, you call us right back. I know you'll be proactive putting it in. Very frustrating. We worked very hard to put a comprehensive plan to come up with what we can do with for 38 and get this road resurfaced. It saddens me every day as I see people, especially seniors or handicapped people, going up and down 38, and there's no sidewalks on the other side. It's disgraceful. And the state is always talking about healthy transportation and all those type of things. Well, in our community, when somebody builds a development on 38, on a state road, we insist that they put on, concrete sidewalks, granite curb,
Yeah.
those type of things. So we're doing the best we can as we're moving along, but we need that final push. And we applied for a $2.5 million Mass Works grant last year. We met every criteria that I can imagine you could meet. You have a hospital, you have a school, you have a development, creating jobs, everything that possibly would give you every rating that you could possibly get. And yet that road has not been done in 30 years, and somehow or another they're able to say no to us. I'm shaking my head of, you haven't done the road over. We came up, we redeveloped, we did all these type of things, we brought businesses, we created jobs, we're giving tax revenue to the state, but yet nothing's coming back for those type of things. We're pecking away at it. I know I've had these conversations with you, but we really need that push
Yep.
to keep extending. There's a project that we've talked about that's going from Colonial to Old Boston Road that's coming up in the next couple of years, but they're planning on ending it, and where it's ending, there's no sidewalks on either side, which is a block away from a new hospital,
Yep.
a block away from a new school, a block away from all new residential development. There's no way in the world that we should have bicycle paths installed on 38 that lead to nothing.
Yeah.
And especially around the...
That's dangerous, too, yeah.
And so, the state is always talking about healthy transportation. We need to hammer that home, that we need just that extra push. Give
Yeah.
us a little bit more here and there to extend this limits out. And we're making progress. We did one part of one town. We did the other end of the other town. Next year, we're going to start up with the Salem and South. That's great. We'll get that done. But it's all those extra pieces that we have to continue. Tewksbury is growing. We see new residents moving in here. We see we're building a new fire station. We're making investment in the community, but yet the state is not coming back to match that. So we're giving all we can, or the residents are paying taxes to do
Yeah.
all these infrastructure improvements, doing all these things, but yet we're getting no relief with moving traffic along
Yep.
our main thoroughfare.
Yep.
So that's the thing we really...
No, I completely agree. I had a conversation with Secretary Knieve, and I said, I asked him if he's the person now who's going to have a lot of say over, Mass Works grants, and, something we should push for. The sooner that you have something that you feel that is applicable, then the sooner we should push. And obviously, with your insight, the sooner that you know that where there might be a push that's needed, please, please, please let us know, and we will push. And that's, yeah, yeah,
And like I said, once again, you were the first to answer our phone calls.
Yep.
I know you'll be fighting for us, so glad to have you back.
100%. Well, thank you. Glad to be back. So,
Perfect. Last but not least, I'll try to keep it quick. So we're going to do the same exact thing for our newly elected
Sure,
reps.
sure.
Representative Robinson and Nguyen. So thank you. You're the
Yeah,
first,
sure.
so to speak. So my one, Senator, I'm going to call it a low-hanging fruit. I truly
Yeah.
believe it's a low-hanging fruit with the state hospital.
yeah,
You mentioned the numbers, $90K for fire.
Yeah.
They pay for water. I'm sorry, they don't pay for water, they pay for sewer.
Yeah.
And listen, we come in peace, as I like
Right,
to say.
right.
600-plus beds and a ton of jobs.
yeah,
But we have to do better than 90K. We
Yeah.
talked just about how to be innovative or creative in
Yeah.
getting funds. That to me is a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
First responders, police, fire, ambulance services, they use the roads. I truly think there's a big opportunity. And Mr. Montori, any idea how long the 90K has been in place for the state hospital? Well,
It's been 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years. So we think of like we're having a new fire station now, potentially a new
Yep.
elementary school. So I just think that there might be an opportunity there for additional funding for this town, not at a
Yep.
state level, Tewksbury level, that we can tap into. So my big request is to explore additional funds, and like I said, we're really going to press hard on our newly elected reps as well
Yep.
in this area. We think it's an arid opportunity.
Yep.
And like I said, we come in peace, but we still think there's, there's
Sure.
going to be more there to help us.
Sure.
And my colleagues did a real good job
Yep.
covering the rest. So I want to thank you for being the
sure.
first.
No, thank you.
Ms. Stronach?
I'm sorry, it wouldn't be me if I didn't have one more thing to say.
Sure.
First of all, I did write a piece of legislation that would close the loophole on the state hospital, and if you'd like to take a look at that.
Sure.
I'm happy to dig that
Sure.
out. I know that I talked to the people of Walpole with the hospital, so I'm happy to give that to you.
Okay.
Not sure if you can do anything with it. but
Sure.
More importantly, because I think he's absolutely right about the low-hanging fruit. More importantly, can you tell us what your office hours and, you mentioned the office hours, but are they going to be set hours? Like,
Yeah.
people get in touch?
Yeah, so, I mean, we're going to do regular office hours, but one thing we've been thinking about is we're trying to think out of the box, how to, for people, some people like, you know, we want to do them during the day, want to do them at night, so we actually want to change. So sometimes we have the same office hours, being around a long time. Certain people work night shifts, some people work day shifts, so we're going to try to change it around. So we want to make sure that we have the opportunity. So Tom is going to be spearheading that, but I promise you, we're going to be doing town hall meetings, so there's going to be a lot of opportunity for us to have dialogue with people in the community, so.
How would people, what's the best way for them to get?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm old school, 617-722-1612. It's always good, and also, yeah, that goes with the office, so, and also, you know, barry.final.mass.state.ma,
Barry.final@masenate.gov.
that's, yeah,
That's not necessarily for me, because we know how to get a hold of you.
Sure.
We just want residents.
sure.
Like I said, I can't thank you enough.
Sure.
Senator, I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Absolutely.
Any other closing remarks?
No, just like I said, we're open for business, and please, you know, we're here to help, and I appreciate the opportunity to say a couple words tonight.
We thank you.
All right,
Awesome.
thanks,
Senator.
thank you, thank you.
And I think, what I'd like to do is maybe just read this quickly for the record. You know, these are some of the questions collectively from the board that we just shared with with the senator. So what I'd like to do is, I'll just read it quickly. From the Selectmen, see below for the near-term and longer-term collective priorities. We mentioned Route 38 enough. Number one priority is Route 38, especially that now we have extended funds and effort in repairing and repiping in anticipation of the work in the center of town, and would like to facilitate any Route 38 specific needs in relationship to the new fire station. Number two, a request for local aid projections at the state level. The senator alluded to that. Number three, what is the state doing to help our seniors regarding tax relief? Ms. Strong will cover that one. Here's a big one for all of us. Number four, additional funding for police to combat opioids. We talked about the state land transfer issues, Tewksbury Cemetery Plus delivered to the state park. Mr. Johnson covered this one, funding to offset the town for early extended voting status. Well, that's one of them, but the state sewer relief as a topic. We get thousands of dollars each year, but we invested over $100 million, to Mr. Johnson's point. Talked about library maintenance of an effort to waiver issue that has been discussed in the past. Talked about the state hospital, explore additional funding, and last but not least, we also put on here is Chapter 40B housing when it does not involve Tewksbury, when it goes to the Commonwealth level. So those are the questions that we're going to pose to the Senate and our two newly elected reps when they come in to speak in the very near future. So we'll put that in the record. All right. What's next on the agenda? It brings us to residents for public comments. Seeing none, we're going to move into new business. And the first order of new business is Papagino's, 1900 Main Street, amusement device license applications. As a matter of fact, the next three orders of business have to do with Papagino's, 1900 Main Street. Papagino's, 1900 Main Street. The first one's for amusement. Second one is for entertainment license modification request. And last but not least, it's going to be Papagino's. This one is on 553 Main Street. So what I'd like to do quickly is, in a nutshell, we saw all the paperwork checked out. Papagino's made their license request to the board. Each application was $75 per machine. But my big question was, when I saw the thing, is what are these machines? You know, and so we actually did a little bit of work, and we talked with Papagino's today. In a nutshell, I think I have the pictures. And just for the residents, if you think of, they're all coin operated. When you put a coin in, you ever see the thing come down and grab the, I think one's stuffed animals, one's fidgets, the things that spin around, and one is plastic devices. But in a nutshell, they're three coin operated machines, and the fourth piece is, it's not a jukebox, but actually the music does get delivered to each of the booths. So we had clarification on essentially 4 items what they were requesting. And again, all the paperwork checked out. So, Mr. Martori, did I cover everything correctly?
Great.
Okay. Any questions from the board? We can take these in order, but any questions about the devices in 1900 Main Street? Again, we're talking about 2 amusement device license applications. 1900 Main Street also includes the entertainment license modification. Again, that's not the jukebox, but the new style of jukebox. And last but not least would be 1 device coin-operated at 553 Main Street, again, all under the Papagino's business entity. And I was happy when I talked to Papagino's that they're still in Tewksbury. And as we know, a lot of Papagino's and D'Angelo sandwich shops, they closed up shop, but we're fortunate in Tewksbury that our Papagino's remain, so I think that was kind of cool. So, any questions from the board?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a motion, and if you don't mind, I'd like to take all three items as one motion and approve the amusement license devices for 1900 Main Street, the entertainment license for 1900 Main Street, and the amusement devices for 553 Main Street, and approve those in one motion.
I think that's fair. I have a motion. Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Next order of business brings us to Mr. Montori, the town manager. Looks like you're busy tonight, mister.
Yeah, I have a few things on here, but I think they're pretty straightforward. The first, Mr. Chairman, that I have on the list is setting town meeting dates. We have annual town meeting that is set by our bylaws for the first Monday in May. That'll be at 7:30 on May 6th, and subsequent meetings will be on the following Wednesday and on Thursday at 7:30. And then if the board could set the date for special town meeting in May, which would be on May 8th at 7 p.m. at the high school, and for the annual town meeting, the location would be at the high school. Now, where in the high school will be determined as we go forward.
So essentially two dates, 7:30 May 6th and 7:30 on May 8th, both as the high school, correct?
Seventh, yeah, that's for the annual town meeting, and then special town meeting on May 8th at 7 p.m.
Okay, gotcha. Do I have any questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to adopt the dates and times described by the town manager.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
And then next, Mr. Chairman, we need to open the town meeting warrant for both special and annual town meeting. And I'd ask the board to open the warrant starting tomorrow morning at 7:30 on January 10th, and closing it on February 8th at 4:30 p.m.
Okay, tomorrow is actually, you want the 9th, January 9th?
Tomorrow 9th, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So the motion would be to open up, dates to open and close the town meeting warrants is January 9th at 7:30, and closing February 8th at 5:30,
4:30.
4:30.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
The next item, and this is not for purposes of having a vote tonight, but I just want to hand out draft ballot questions for the board to take under review and for further discussion at, do you need another one?
I think we're all set.
Further discussion at the next meeting or the meeting after that. The questions are as follows. The first is a debt exclusion question for the elementary school project that includes approximately 140,000 square foot elementary school. In addition to that, included in that project are school administration offices and a new athletic field complex. The wording on this article as a debt exclusion is similar to the article ballot questions that we have used in the past that have been approved by bond counsel in the past, and similar to what is recommended by the Department of Revenue. I sent this question to bond counsel for review and comment. I've also sent it to senior town council and town council for review, and I've sent it to the superintendent of the schools, school department, as well as the chairman of the elementary school building committee.
Just on that one, Mr. Montori, so there'll be no cost? There's no, you don't put a cost in there, correct? On
The ballot questions never have a cost, and the reason for that is at town meeting, if this is fortunate enough to pass, town meeting is the place where a cost is put in front of the residents. And the reason for that is because if you put a cost into these articles, then you're limited to that cost. And if you have an overrun for some reason, you don't want to have to go back to the ballot box. So Department of Revenue, when they set these questions, they set it with no dollar amounts.
Very good. So don't try to be sneaky, that's it. That's just
Right.
whatever
There will be a dollar amount. People will know what the projected dollar amount is, and we'll bring that forward at town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Then the other questions that I want, if the board could review over the next couple of weeks, have to do with the recreational marijuana. As you know, the town meeting approved articles at town meeting in the fall to ban the sale of recreational marijuana. They voted to ban recreational marijuana cultivation, research, and manufacturing. But on those three areas, they actually have a sunset clause that ends December 31st, I believe, of 2019. Those articles actually were all approved today by the Attorney General's office, so they're all set to move forward. And what we talked about doing in regard to cultivation, research, and manufacturing was to bring back non-binding referendum questions at the April local election, because the feeling was that residents, when they voted to ban recreational marijuana at the ballot, a statewide ballot, they may have not known that cultivation, research, and manufacturing was involved. So these questions simply ask, are they in favor of licensed recreation marijuana cultivation? Are residents in favor of licensed recreation marijuana independent testing? And are residents in favor of recreation marijuana product manufacturing? These questions have all been sent to town council and senior town council for review, but I wanted the board to have them tonight to start reviewing, and we should probably discuss it at one of the next meetings so we can get this information out and to the town clerk if we're going to move forward.
And these are being put on the ballot in lieu of the vote that took place in October, correct?
It's in response to the vote that took
Okay.
place in October.
Okay, very good.
That is it. I don't know if you have
Any questions from the board on the questions?
I'd just like to say, I think that these questions are a lot clearer than what we had to present at town meeting, so I appreciate that.
In the simplest form.
And it's great that we have the Attorney General's stuff now while
We
we're
do.
starting to develop this, so I think that's really important.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
So we'll look for approval or adoption, if you would, on the next Board of Selectmen meeting, which is scheduled for January 22nd. Is that?
Yes, correct,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Okay, very good.
And I think that'll give enough time to get the information out to residents. And then in conjunction with,
I was just, Mr. Chairman, just one other question for the town meeting. Is there a hard deadline with respect to printing of ballots that has to be considered?
all questions, non-binding referendum questions and debt exclusion questions should be in the hands of the town clerk 35 days prior to the election. So I think you want to give them as much notice as possible.
Yeah. Thank you.
Under the next item I have actually has to do with our agenda on the 22nd of January also. We have just renewed and approved the renewal of liquor licenses and other licenses in the community. And there is one establishment that year in and year out we have problems with, and that is Maverick's Restaurant and Lounge at 2212 Main Street. Every year, they do not pay their taxes, and every year we're sitting here talking about a revocation hearing. So I'd ask the board if they could schedule a revocation hearing for Maverick's Lounge to be held on January 22nd. But before you do that, January 22nd is going to be a busy night for the board. You have a poll hearing that evening. You have Representative Nguyen coming in that evening, and I plan to present the budget that evening. The budget is ready for presentation, but because of all our schedules, the 22nd is the most convenient date to do it. So I didn't know if you want to start that night early, get some of your more your other business done before Representative Wen speaks and before I do the budget. So if you wanted to start at 6 or 6:30 that evening, you could have the revocation hearing, complete all your other business before Representative Wen comes in.
Okay, we'll socialize after the meeting. We have one of our colleagues out, so that's, might be a good idea, especially about the budget. You know, that is, takes some time, and we have a lot of questions. So we'll socialize after, you know, and see if we can get that meeting earlier, since it is a heavy agenda.
Right, and if you want, you could, if you are inclined to have the revocation hearing that evening, you could have the time to be determined at my discretion, depending on when the board starts their meeting.
Okay,
And I can finalize that in the next 24 hours.
so we don't need to take like a placeholder vote or action right now?
I mean, you'd be held to that, so what I would say is just set it for that evening on the 22nd. The time to be determined by myself, depending on the agenda.
And before we make that motion, did we get a letter today from Mavericks, from their lawyer?
We received a letter from their lawyer saying that they would have everything paid in full on the 23rd, but I think the board should still have the hearing on the 22nd, let them come in and talk about that formally to the board, and if the board so inclines to accept their offer to have it paid by the 23rd, you can discuss it that night, but I would not accept that as this is resolved.
Very good.
I would call for
Understood.
the revocation hearing.
With that, do I have a, Ms. Stronach, you have a question?
I just want to make a comment. I am all just in favor of starting earlier and taking care of some of the easier business earlier, but I do want to, you know, we're great at our schedules, not me, but you all are. And so I'd just like to say that if we are going to have the representative, if we could stick to slotting them at that 7 time, just for residents who may not be as in tune to the...
We don't want to wait till after the budget?
I'm just saying, I think we should
I got you.
keep to 7 for her. That's my only...
Yeah, she's scheduled for 7:10, and we're keeping to that. The other thing I'll throw out right now, and it's fine with me, if you wanted to do the budget presentation on a separate night, we can do it the 23rd or...
Why don't we slow, let's keep, we're going to keep the date of the 22nd, January 22nd, and let's see if the board can be flexible, and we'll just go from there. So I think Mr. Montero is at least looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to schedule a revocation hearing for Mavericks for January 22nd, time to be determined by the town manager.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A motion, a second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Okay. The next item, Mr. Chairman, is a conservation restriction for Lot 3, 100 Balsam Place, and Lot 4, 1574 Main Street. This is a conservation restriction that was required under permits from the Planning Board, a site special permit, and an order of conditions of the Conservation Commission. The lots that are in question, 1574 Main Street, is owned by, I believe, Lowell General, and the 100 Balsam Place is owned by Mark Ginsberg, and they're signatories to this conservation restriction. The land is in the rear of the property that abuts state hospital land that has further access to Livingston Recreation Fields. It's something that we've been working on for quite some time. The Conservation Commission has approved this document, and we just need the Board of Selectmen's approval tonight.
Any questions from the board? I saw all the paperwork was in there, so, and that being said, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this conservation restriction as presented. And I think that this is a very good move for the town. It's about 18 acres in total that'll be maintained as open space. So I want to thank all the parties that have worked on this, because I do think it's been quite some time, right?
It has.
And just conservation was on 12/19, in case anybody's interested in looking at that.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you. Next, I just want to give a brief update on the Regional Emergency Communications Center, otherwise known as the RECC. The RECC project is moving forward. We have the project out to bid. The project, as you might recall, is an approximately 6,500 square foot building, once a single-story building being built on a lot next to our DPW on Whipple Road. The building will house our emergency communications center for regional dispatch. It is in conjunction with, it's Tewksbury and the town of Dracut. 7 dispatch seats will be housed in the facility with the ability to have 2 additional seats for if another town is interested in joining us. The project has been ongoing for the last few years, and the project is being fully funded by state 911 grants, which has been a real bonus for the communities. Filed subbids on the projects are due Friday, January 11th, and then general bids are due January 23rd, which is a Wednesday. We're looking forward to that to see what the project cost ends up being. The project is estimated to be $4,350,000. We're hoping, because of the strong interest that we have in the project, that we get good bids. Since the project's been out to bid, the engineer, and architect actually, Ted Gallant, Architectural Studios, has submitted 3 addendums to the bid specifications. The first was a 1-page document for general administrative clarifications. There was a second addendum that was actually a large addendum, about 107 pages, which is really out of the ordinary. Usually they're not that lengthy, but this had a lot of redundancy and information that was previously presented to the bidders. That was mostly for mechanical and electrical. And then there was a third 20-page addendum, again, answering electric questions from bidders. So the project, for the most part, the bidding process has gone smoothly, and we're looking forward to opening the bids on January 23rd.
Very good, thank you. Any questions from the board?
I know that we are hopeful that other communities are going to join and that this is being built with the ability to house other communities. Have we seen any other interest? I know that goes up.
Yeah, no, not at this point. We had hoped that Chelmsford would have joined, but that didn't happen. But we continue to talk to other communities. So right now, we're specifically focusing on getting the bids in place. And I have State 911 coming out to meet with us on the 24th, the day after the bids, and keep the process going and get more grant applications in for the rest of our equipment. And so we're just going to focus on Drake and Tewksbury at the moment. And hopefully, once it's near completion, someone else joins.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate the update.
Yeah, maybe that's depending on if a town or community or city has their infrastructure that needs to be revamped, updated, or new. Maybe it will fall on our lap, because of a timing thing, as opposed to someone trying to be front and center today. So,
And that's a great point. I think a community that has to invest in its infrastructure of new radios and new dispatch equipment in one of their public safety buildings may look at this and say, instead of doing that, let's join this facility, save on capital, and also save on operating. So I think that's an excellent point. That may be the timing.
Any other? Go ahead,
I'd
Ms.
just
Strong.
like to make sure that people understand that we're not the only ones out looking to get other people involved in this project, and I think that's important for people
Correct.
to know.
Correct. Mr. Chairman, the next item is I have a senior town council invoice in the amount of $11,380 that I would ask the board to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, unanimous?
Next, I have a town council,
Ms. Stronach?
I might be reading, isn't it,
Second page.
Yeah.
oh, okay,
I almost did the same thing.
thank
so.
you.
You are good. So that one, so I think we're on the town council invoice.
town council invoice for December 1st through December 15th, 2018, in the amount of $3,315. I'd ask the board to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
And the last item, Mr. Chairman, I have for Mass DOT project number 608346, which is the number associated with the South Street, Salem Road, and Route 38 Main Street project. This is a land damage agreement and right-of-way plans that Mass DOT needs the board to approve for land that's owned by the town of Tewksbury. That'll be part of this project and utilized during this project, whether it's through construction easements or takings for the project itself. The document has been reviewed by our engineering staff and DPW, and we recommend that the board approve the land damage agreement and right-of-way plans and authorize the chairman of the board to sign the agreement.
Okay, just I'll have a question I'll open up to the board. I mean, so I did a lot of homework on this. Obviously, it's like pretty standard stuff, right?
It's all standard documents.
I see the word eminent domain, and I kind of just,
Yeah.
eminent domain and a couple all the words that lawyers use. So like I said, this is pretty standard stuff, not the first time, correct?
Yep, correct. It's all standard documents that the state uses.
And this is for Tewksbury land, not residence land, is that correct?
Just Tewksbury land.
Okay.
Town of Tewksbury land.
Okay. It's not just because I'm in a butter.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with, all the residents have their own dealings with the Commonwealth.
Okay, pretty standard stuff. So do we need to take a motion, or do we need to just?
Yes, a motion, if the board can vote to approve the land damage agreement as presented and the right-of-way plans as presented, and authorize you as chairman to sign.
It's a pleasure of the board.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, unanimous.
And that is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Very
Thank
busy
you.
tonight.
No, that was good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to put my clerk hat on since Mr. Brian Dick is not here. And we actually have minutes, I think here it says September 24th, 2018. Regular session is actually September 25th, so I reviewed the minutes. I have no issues. Any questions or issues, gang, with the September 25th, 2008 regular session meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for September 28th.
I have a motion to accept. Do I have a second?
I will second
I
that.
have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous. All right, that brings us down to board member reports. Ms. Stronach.
Okay. Local housing is meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock here in Town Hall. Elementary Building Committee is having another community forum on Thursday, January 10th at 6 PM here in this building as well. So I know that it's been out on the board, and I want to thank everybody for pushing that. It's really important that people start to pay attention to this issue, especially since it's going to be on the ballot in April. And we have our final submission, which I talked at our last meeting, so going before the Mass Building Authority. And then I just would like to say that I was thrilled last night to hear that National Grid has come to some agreements with their workforce. So I just want to say thank you for everyone to get back to the table and resolve that issue. That's good news for us. And the last thing I'd like to say is I'm wishing everybody a healthy and happy new year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Mr. Johnson.
Just two things this evening, Mr. Chairman. For the public's benefit, there's a Community Preservation Committee meeting this Thursday at 6:30 PM here in Town Hall. That's January 10. And next week, the 16th, at 7 PM. Actually, no, let me retract that. I believe it's 6 PM. The Zoning Bylaw Review Committee will be meeting here in Town Hall. That's January 16, a week from tomorrow, to continue their efforts to present a warrant, hopefully in May.
Very good.
Okay?
The CPC is at 7, I believe.
Oh, it got changed?
Yes.
Okay. So check the time. I have the dates right, but I don't have the times right.
We will, we shall. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Crowder.
All three committees that I'm on, we haven't met since the last meeting, so I'll give an update on our next meeting, so I have no update for this meeting.
Okay. Same here for the NIMCOG, although we do have an important NIMCOG meeting for the DPW. Mr. Montori, I don't have my paperwork in front of me, but I believe that's scheduled for January 24th.
Yes.
But the bottom line, we're going to try to seek additional funding from the Commonwealth to help us with the DPW project, so I will update in our next meeting. And the last thing is, Mr. Kratman, you might have to help me here, because again, I left my notes at home, but we had the pleasure to visit the walk-in clinic, the new hospital, on Main Street a few weeks ago with a few of the planning board members, and my goodness, what a facility, massive, it doesn't look that big, but beautiful facility. I had all my numbers, I think it's going to have 45-plus employees, everything's state-of-the-art. I believe it's 7 days a week, 8 to 8, is that?
Yeah, but the hours are actually on the,
Okay.
right on the billboard, there, the sign that's out there.
We said
7 days a week.
Cool. And for the seniors in the community, now they have a place to go, so it's only going to be, I shouldn't say emergency, but I always say for stitches and x-rays, but also just for patient care, just checkups. And there was another important aspect of it as well, but I don't have my notes here. So I will provide another update during our next selectmen meeting, but it was pretty impressive, to say the least, to get that facility in our community. It's really incredible and wonderful for the community, so. So with that being said, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Thank you.